Oh, let's see if that'll let you. Let me hang on here. We just grab that link here, Amanda, and I'll. Try to copy this link.
I already have them embedded into Zoom, so you just have to hit to show captions as well.
Right. Well, I'm trying to send it out to for all panel or for everyone. Does it give you the option to chat to everyone?
Oh, I see what you mean. I'm sorry.
No worries.
Um, it just shows host and panelists, and that's what it looks like I sent to.
Okay. And
I see what you mean. That is all I see.
okay. I got it. Okay. All right. We should be good to go. Um, Good afternoon. I'm Blaze Bryant, the communications specialist with the New York Association on Independent Living, or NIAL, and that is spelled NYAIL, as we're here for the October webinar for our 2025 webinar series. And before I introduce our presenters, a couple of quick housekeeping things. Number one, the webinar is being recorded, and I'll have the recording available hopefully by the end of the day today, Wednesday, if not tomorrow for sure. Number two, the chat function. If you have any technical issues, please, you can, the chat will go to all hosts and panelists. However, if you have any questions for our presenters, please use the Q&A feature if you are able. If there's an access issue with that, then by all means, please use the chat and we'll make sure we get to your question. Number three, um, there will be a survey that I send out with the recording. It's a feedback survey for the webinar, so if you please could take a few minutes to complete that. It should take just a couple of minutes. That would be fantastic. Now on to why we are here. We have three presenters from the Office of New Americans. Cynthia Stewart, Lourdes Aguas, and Lourdes, I hopefully said your name correctly. Please
You
feel
did.
free. Okay, and Kelly Hernandez. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Blaze. Welcome, everyone. And thank you so much for joining us today for our training, Supporting New Americans with Disabilities. We thank you for taking your time out of your busy days to learn with us. This training was created to support people who assist new Americans with disabilities. And we'll be using the term New Americans throughout this training to refer to all immigrants or people who are new to the US. And we'll share more today about who New Americans are in this presentation. We hope that today's presentation supports the work you do and that we can be a resource for you in the future. We welcome your questions, and without further ado, let's get started. So, hello everyone, my name is Cynthia Stewart. I'm one of your presenters today. I'll share a visual description. I'm a white woman in my 30s, and I have long light brown hair, and I'm wearing a navy blazer. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a senior program manager, and I lead the Ramirez June Initiative at the New York State Office for New Americans. And now I will pass it to my colleague, Lourdes.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lourdes Aguas. I am co-presenting here today with my colleagues Cynthia and Kelly. I am a Latina woman in my 40s. I have long black hair, and today I'm wearing a blue shirt with stripes. I am the project assistant for the Ramirez June Initiative at the New York State Office for New Americans. And now I'll pass it to Kelly.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kelly Hernandez. I am a Latina female. I am wearing a pink sweater today in honor of Cancer Awareness, and I have long black hair. And I'm also a immigrant community liaison for the Office for New Americans. I'm happy to be here today.
And this is Blaze here. I should have done an image description, but the totally blind guy forgot. I am a man in my a white man in my 30s wearing a long sleeve polo shirt with short black hair, wearing black headphones. Now back to our regularly scheduled presentation.
Thank you, Blaze. Great. So, who are New Americans? And this slide shares an illustrated picture of the Statue of Liberty. So, what does the term New Americans mean? New Americans, we use this term to refer to all people who were born outside of the United States who have moved to the United States to live here. And New Americans do not need to literally be new to the US. Some New Americans may have just arrived, while others may have lived here for years or for decades. And both the terms New Americans or immigrants can be used interchangeably to describe newcomers to the US. And New Americans can, of course, include people with disabilities. About 1 in 4 New Yorkers are New Americans. New Americans are members of our communities and our neighbors. They are our coworkers, friends, and family. And many of us attending this training and conducting this training are also New Americans or are part of New American families. So our next slide shares that New Americans is an umbrella term, and it has an icon of an umbrella with names of immigration statuses under it to just hone in the metaphor of New Americans being an umbrella term to describe people with all different types of immigration statuses and situations, which includes, but is not limited to, people who are naturalized citizens, which means that someone was not born a citizen of the United States, but they've gone through the naturalization process and have become a US citizen. New Americans also includes lawful permanent residents, people who are refugees and asylees, undocumented individuals, and many more immigration statuses and situations. There's no single pathway to legal status or citizenship, and there's no single profile to describe the immigrant experience. Every story is different, but we can learn more about some of the pathways New Americans have taken to the US to escape violence in their countries of origin, to start over, and to make a better life for themselves and their families. So today, during this training, we're going to share how does the Office for New Americans support immigrants in New York State? How does the Office for New Americans, or ONA's, Ramirez June Initiative increase access to services for immigrants with disabilities? Also, what is immigration status and how does it affect access to benefits and work authorization? And to help explain these things, we're going to share some New American stories as learning tools. Now I'm going to pass it to my colleague, Kelly.
All right. Thank you, Cynthia. So just for housekeeping, we are on slide number 6. We're going to learn more about New York State ONA. The New York State Office for New Americans, or ONA, was created in 2012 and is the first of its kind in the country. It provides free, community-based support to new Americans, and we help them access essential services. The Office for New Americans was the first state immigrant services office created by statute or law. There is now a network of around 20 offices for new Americans across the United States. As we move through this training, keep in mind the many ways ONA can be a resource and referral source for you and the people you serve. We're going to go to slide 7, which shows the ONA wheel. In this slide, we see the ONA programs graphic. ONA assists new Americans with the following 6 programs: Citizenship and Civic Engagement, which provides free and confidential services, including naturalization support, civic test preparation, legal consultations, and community workshops. We have developmental disability services, workforce development program, immigration legal services, English as a second language learning, which provides free English language classes to speakers of other languages with a workforce component. We also offer mental health services where new Americans can be connected to a licensed mental health provider to attend group therapy sessions hosted by a therapist. These sessions are free and do not go through insurance. The next slide discusses the New Americans Hotline, which can be a resource for you and the people you support. Anyone can call the hotline for support regardless of immigration status. Service providers are also welcome to call the hotline. The number 1-800-566-7636. The hotline is open Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m., except on holidays. Support is free and confidential, and assistance is available in over 200 languages. Now I'm going to pass it over to Lourdes.
Thanks, Kelly. So I want to share with you about the Ramirez June Initiative, which, just like ONA, is a first of its kind in the nation. This initiative aims to help new Americans with disabilities of all ages. It was originally launched in 2019 as a grant from the New York State Council on Developmental Disabilities, the CDD. And our CDD grant ended last year, but we continue to work and support new Americans with disabilities. We do this through outreach, training, and partnership. We also host in-person and virtual workshops to share information about disability services and services for immigrants. We build partnerships and share strategies with other state agencies, community-based organizations, and with new American communities. And we provide technical assistance for providers assisting new Americans with disabilities who are facing challenges accessing services or benefits. We can go to the next slide. So I'd like to share some of the achievements of the initiative over the past 6 years. Since we launched in 2019, we have hosted over 200 workshops, which engaged about 6,500 attendees. And we also have mailed out almost 6,000 copies of Voyage, a free multilingual illustrated book designed to help new American parents celebrate their children's growth and identify disabilities early. Voyage is mailed to ONA partners, immigrant families, community-based organizations, state agencies, public libraries, and pediatrician offices. And we also have the bilingual coordinator program. This slide shares a picture of the staff from the ONA bilingual coordinator program helping a Chinese American client in his 70s to fill out paperwork. The ONA bilingual coordinator program offers case management services that are culturally and linguistically responsive. It first launched in February 2023 under the ONA Ramirez June Initiative, and it's hosted by the Chinese American Planning Council in Brooklyn, New York. The program connects its clients with disability and mental health services, including OPWDD services. The ONA Bilingual Coordinator Program was created because ONA saw that immigrants with disabilities faced many complex challenges to access disability services, including language, immigration status, and systemic barriers to accessing these services. We hope to expand this program to more regions of New York State to provide case management services to connect immigrants with the disability services that they need. And now I'll pass it back to Kelly.
Thank you, Lourdes. So we are on slide 12. Keep in mind, these are learning tools, not real client stories. They're composites of repeating issues that we've tracked and supported through the ONA Ramirez June Initiative. This training was created based on state and federal policies and laws as of October of 2025. Immigration law is complex and ever-changing. This training does not replace legal advice. Always connect individuals to an immigration attorney when questions arise. Now let's learn about why is it important to understand immigration status. First of all, let's consider what is immigration status. Immigration status refers to the type of presence a person has in the U.S. Immigration status is important to understand because it affects new Americans in different ways, such as eligibility for public benefits like Medicaid and Supplemental Security Income, or SSI. Immigration status affects an individual's authorization to work in the U.S., and it affects whether someone is lawfully present in the U.S. at a given time. You cannot determine someone's immigration status based on how people look, their culture, or the language they speak. Let's now discuss pathways to an immigration status. It is important to keep in mind that immigration laws and policies often change. An immigration attorney can consult with someone who is undocumented or any new American in need to determine if they have a pathway to obtain an immigration status. Keep in mind that an individual's immigration status can change over time. For that reason, think of seeing an immigration attorney as going for an annual checkup with your doctor. The New York State Office for New Americans, ONA, offers free multilingual immigration legal support and screenings, as well as other free services to support new Americans in New York State. Now let's pass it to Lourdes.
Thanks again, Kelly. So this slide shares a picture of a man in his 50s with gray hair. He's a wheelchair user and is in a shopping plaza. Many new Americans are authorized to work in the US. You do not have to be a US citizen to be authorized to work in this country. And there are different forms of documentation that demonstrate someone's authorization to work. Understanding work authorization can help you support new Americans to access disability employment services. This slide contains pictures of some examples of work authorization documents, including a picture of a green card, an employment authorization card, and an I-94 form. So in the US, the green card is one form of evidence that someone is authorized to work, but this is not the only form of documentation to demonstrate authorization to work. New Americans with certain immigration statuses are eligible for something called the Employment Authorization Document, which enables them to work lawfully. Refugees and asylees are granted work authorization through their immigration status, which is documented by the I-94 form. They can also get an EAD as additional proof of employment. But remember that there are other ways to be work authorized in the US. These are only a few examples. Keep this information in mind when supporting new Americans with disabilities who want to work. Connect new Americans with disabilities who are work authorized to disability employment services and opportunities. And if you meet new Americans who are not currently authorized to work in the US, you can connect them with an immigration attorney to see if they have a pathway to obtain work authorization. And now we will share some examples of New American stories. On this slide, we have several individuals who we will share more about in the following slides. We'll walk through examples of immigration statuses to learn more about the stories of May, Sai, Carlos, Manuel, and Chen. I'll share a visual description of these individuals. These pictures are cropped, and some details may only show in the larger pictures in the following slides. So to start, we have May. She is an Asian American woman with developmental disabilities and is in her 20s. She has dark hair that goes just above her shoulders and is wearing a blue shirt and has her hand on her hips. Then we have Sai, who's sitting on a bench facing to the left. She has dark skin and she's in her early 30s. She's a blind woman and is wearing sunglasses. She has a pink shirt and has her braided hair up in a high bun. She has a cane resting on the park bench. Then we have Chen, a Chinese American man in his 30s. He's wearing glasses and a collared shirt. He is a wheelchair user. Then we have Carlos, a Hispanic man in his 20s. He has developmental disabilities. He wears glasses and a light green shirt. He's wearing an apron as part of his job's uniform, and he's smiling. And lastly, we have Manuel. Manuel is a Hispanic teenager in high school. He's wearing a red shirt and has a mustache. He's smiling, and in the background, there's a classroom setting. And I'll pass it back to Kelly.
Thank you, Lourdes. So we begin with our first New American story, which is about May. May is a lawful permanent resident. Lawful permanent residents are commonly called green card holders. These individuals have permanent authorization to live and work in the U.S. This status is often acquired through employment, family sponsorship, or other legal pathways. Let's learn more about May. She grew up in Malaysia and speaks Cantonese, which is a Chinese language. May's father was hired to work in the United States, and he was able to petition for her to join him. Now she's a green card holder, which is also called a lawful permanent resident, or LPR. Lawful permanent residents like May are authorized to work and access Medicaid in New York State. After 5 years of holding this status, they can apply to become U.S. citizens. For marriage-based green cards, it can take as little as 3 years. Let's learn more about May. Sorry about that. Lawful permanent residents like May are authorized to work and access Medicaid in New York State. Oh, I already read that one. I apologize, guys. LPRs, or lawful permanent residents, can qualify for supplemental security income, or SSI, after 5 years in LPR status. But they also must meet other eligibility requirements and have 40 qualifying work quarters, which is about 10 years under Social Security. Spouses or parents' work history can help meet that total. Now I'm going to pass it back to Lourdes.
So now I'd like to share a little more about other immigration statuses. Some new Americans arrive in the U.S. seeking protection from persecution. Refugees and asylees have been granted legal protection from persecution due to their race, religion, nationality, political beliefs, or membership in a particular social group, which sometimes can include disability. And in this slide, we have a picture of Thai, who is a refugee, Carlos, who's an asylee, and Chen, who is an asylum applicant. So let's discuss a little bit how these statuses are similar and how they're different. A refugee applies for protection from persecution before entering the US. So refugee status is granted before the individual enters the country, the US. After the individual is admitted in the US as a refugee, they have permission to live and work in the US. An asylee, on the other hand, is someone who applied for asylum after arriving in the US, or at the US border, or at the port of entry, for example, an airport. Individuals can also apply for asylum from inside the US within a certain time period of entering the country if they meet certain criteria. And finally, an asylum applicant is different than an asylee. An asylee is someone who has already been granted asylum status, whereas an asylum applicant is someone who has applied for asylum but has not yet had the right to remain in the US determined. For asylum applicants, their ability to access benefits or work lawfully depends on where they are in the asylum process. So let's learn a little more about these three individuals. Saeed applied for refugee status outside of the US and was resettled in New York. Carlos came to the US from El Salvador without an immigration status, but was later granted asylum. And then Chen came to the US from China and applied for asylum within the US, but he's still waiting for a decision on his application. So Saeed, she's from the Democratic Republic of Congo. She speaks Kinyarwanda. Saeed and her family applied for refugee status to escape decades-long armed conflicts in their home country. In 2022, she was granted refugee status and was resettled in New York State. Then we have Carlos, who came from El Salvador in 2012. He speaks Spanish. He left El Salvador to escape from persecution from organized crime groups. He entered the US without an immigration status and petitioned for asylum within the US. 8 years after he submitted his application, he was granted asylum. And now I will pass it back to Cynthia.
Thank you, Lourdes. So now let's talk about work and benefit access for refugees and asylees. Refugees and asylees are immediately work authorized. Their I-94 form demonstrates their work authorization. However, if they want additional proof of work authorization, they can also apply for the Employment Authorization Document, or the EAD card, because in some cases, employers may be more familiar with that work card versus an immigration form. However, it's not required for refugees and asylees to have the EAD in order to work. Their I-94 form already demonstrates that. Refugees and asylees are eligible for Medicaid in New York State and have a pathway to become lawful permanent residents or green card holders and later naturalize and become US citizens. There is an important policy related to SSI and refugees and asylees to keep in mind. So refugees and asylees have a 7-year hard limit on using SSI benefits or supplemental security income. After they reach this 7-year limit, their SSI benefits will end. And under this policy, refugees and asylees must naturalize and become US citizens to either keep their SSI or reinstate their SSI benefits if they've already lost them. Keep in mind, if refugees and asylees become green card holders, they will still lose their SSI under this policy. They have to become US citizens to keep or reinstate that SSI. And when does the 7-year limit start? So for refugees, the 7-year limit starts once they have entered the US as a refugee. And for asylees, the 7-year limit starts, the clock starts ticking when they are granted that asylum status. Even, if they apply for SSI like 2 years later, that 7-year limit would still start once they get that status. This 7-year limit on SSI can sometimes come as a surprise to people when they all of a sudden no longer have their benefits. So we're sharing this information to spread awareness about this and to help individuals plan ahead and connect people who are refugees and asylees in this situation with immigration attorneys for support to become U.S. citizens. And keep in mind that the process to become a U.S. citizen takes a lot of time and should ideally start well before the 7-year limit ends. Now let's meet Chen and learn more about him. Chen came from China in 2023 to the US and speaks Mandarin, which is also a Chinese language. Chen came to the US to flee discrimination as a member of the LGBT plus community, and he hopes to one day be able to find a partner and get married. Chen applied for asylum in 2024, but his application is still under review. It's important to know that asylum applicants do not have the same access to benefits as people who have already been granted asylum. And so calling people who have already been granted asylum asylees versus asylum applicants who are still in that process. Keep in mind, asylum applicants may need to wait years for their applications to be processed and get an interview to hear their asylum case. And not all applications for asylum are successful. Not all people who apply for asylum will get that status. Here's what asylum applicants can access. Asylum applicants can apply for work authorization 150 days after filing their application for asylum status. If work authorization is granted, their work authorization will be demonstrated through the employment authorization document card. So the EAD card would be their proof that they can work. Asylum applicants cannot be eligible for SSI. So they cannot access SSI as an asylum applicant. But keep in mind, if someone is granted asylum, they would have more access to benefits overall, and they would be able to be eligible for SSI. But an asylum applicant cannot get SSI. So always connect asylum applicants with immigration attorneys to ensure that their case stays on track. And now I will pass, slide. And a little bit more about when and how asylum applicants can access Medicaid, specifically in New York State. It's a little tricky, but asylum applicants become Medicaid eligible once they are classified as PRUCOL, which is an acronym standing for Permanently Residing Under Color of Law. So PRUCOL is a little bit of an obscure term, but this term might be helpful if you're assisting someone in this situation. PRUCOL is a benefit status, particularly about whether people are eligible for Medicaid. So it's not an immigration status. PRUCOL is a term used to decide whether people can be eligible for public benefits like Medicaid. And it's while immigration statuses are decided at the federal level, PRUCOL is determined, a benefit status is determined by local departments of social services or New York State of Health. They can classify an individual as PRUCOL, and that would make that individual, in this case, an asylum applicant, eligible for benefits. So sharing this in case you're supporting an individual and maybe you're working with local departments of Social Security and it's a little bit unclear, it's important to keep in mind that when determining someone's PRUCOL, they need to take all the facts and circumstances of their case in mind. So we hope that this is a little bit of a resource and that term will stick with you, PRUCOL. Now I'm going to pass it to Kelly for slide 33 to share more about Manuel.
Thank you, Cynthia. Let's talk about access for people who are undocumented. First of all, what do we mean when we say undocumented? When we say undocumented, we're referring to individuals who entered the U.S. without inspection, overstayed their visa, lost legal status due to policy change, or may have filed an immigration application but haven't received confirmation from U.S. citizenship and immigration services. Keep in mind that some people, like children and youth, may be undocumented and not know that they are undocumented. For example, they might not know they are undocumented until they apply for college and realize they cannot get financial aid due to their status. Some people may have an immigration status and then they can become out of status and become undocumented. For instance, if someone is from a particular country that has temporary protected status or TPS, and then that TPS ends for their country, they no longer have an immigration status. Or someone may be out of status if their visa has expired. There are some people who are undocumented who may be eligible for a lawful immigration status and may not know it because they have not been in contact with an immigration attorney. There are many different situations that an undocumented individual may be in. This training focuses on how we can support immigrants with disabilities, including undocumented individuals. Now let's meet Manuel. He came to the US with his parents in 2022 from Venezuela due to food shortages in his country. He lives in New York State and goes to high school and does not currently have an immigration status. Individuals who are undocumented cannot work lawfully and cannot get supplemental security income. When supporting undocumented individuals and families or mixed status families, it's important to know healthcare resources that can be of support. Undocumented individuals can receive emergency Medicaid. Keep in mind, emergency Medicaid is time limited. In New York State, pregnant individuals can receive Medicaid up to 12 months past postpartum. Undocumented individuals can access healthcare services at clinics who serve the uninsured or offer sliding scale services, for example, at federally qualified community health centers. Undocumented children 18 and under can access healthcare through the Child Health Plus program. Undocumented individuals aged 65 and older can access Medicaid healthcare coverage in New York State. Keep in mind that Medicaid coverage for undocumented individuals who are 65 and older is not compatible with OPWDD services. Now, I'm going to turn it over to Cynthia on slide 37.
Thank you, Kelly. So we have some takeaways and some resources to share before we open it up to you all. And we encourage you to share your questions in the Q&A feature. So some takeaways from what we shared today. So immigration status affects access to work authorization and whether someone is able to access public benefits. One's immigration status can change over time. Immigration laws and policies often change. Assist new Americans with disabilities to access disability employment services and work opportunities, as well as the benefits that they are eligible for as needed. Connect new Americans in need with immigration attorneys. Want to share a plug for a training, and we will share this flyer out with our materials. We're doing a Know Your Rights training tomorrow in partnership with New York Immigration Coalition. This is Thursday, October 16th, 12:30 to 2:30 p.m. There is a QR code to scan on the screen that will also be shared out. And this Know Your Rights, it's the same information in other Know Your Rights training, but it is open to all. And the main audience who requested it are people at a disability service provider agency. So if you are able to join this training tomorrow, we welcome you to join or share about it or register and access the recording later. So we hope you share your questions as all, but we have some questions for you. We'd like to know, do you have experience supporting new Americans with disabilities? If so, what challenges does this community face? What support is needed? And how can we make New York State more welcoming for new Americans with disabilities? And with those questions being shared, I'm just going to have our survey on the slide. We'll also share the survey link in the chat and out afterwards. If you're able to share some feedback, your feedback helps us do the work that we do and is really helpful to inform our presentations. So with that, I'm going to open it up to Blaze and to the attendees.
All right, Blaze here, Cynthia, Lotus, and Kelly, a terrific presentation. Thank you so much. And we have about 15 minutes for questions, which please use the Q&A box, and we'll get to as many of your questions as we can. One question that came in the chat was about the Social Security look back for asylees, the 7 year, I think it's a look back if I am saying it correctly. And the person wanted a little bit more information on that and how it works.
Definitely. So yes, this 7-year limit starts when someone is granted asylum. So let's say they were granted asylum status today. Even if they don't access SSI until 2 years from now, the 7-year limit, the clock starts ticking today when they get that status. And then for someone who's a refugee, it starts once they enter the country. And we can share out follow-up links, a link to this policy. It's from Social Security Administration.
Okay, great. Now, because we don't have any open questions, okay, Dickie is asking the follow-up question for green card holders. Is that the same?
Great. I see 2 questions. Great. So green card holders, no. That 7-year limit policy is only for refugees and asylees. What we shared for green card holders, I can go back to that slide real quick for their SSI use. So they have a different policy where so green card holders, which means the same as a lawful permanent resident or LPR, they can be eligible for SSI after 5 years of having the LPR status, but only if they can be credited with 40 qualifying work quarters in the Social Security system. So that's about 10 years. And they can also count earnings from their spouse or parents towards these 40 quarters.
Sure. Now, my follow-up question to you, Cynthia, is based on some of the language that came out of the so-called One Beautiful Bill Act, emphasis on so-called, because for our respective communities, it is quite ugly, frankly. Does that change at all with the 80-hour work requirements that came out of the legislation?
Oh, thank you for flagging that, Blaze. So that is what we currently have, but I would defer to that change in the bill.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I think we all know that Social Security is not exactly the quickest to update things. Vernon put in the chat that deaf illegal immigrants need a lot of help. What resources are available for deaf illegal immigrants, especially when you factor in some of the additional barriers they face?
Definitely. No, thank you for flagging that. And Vernon, if you'd like to put in the chat, where you're located in New York State, because we do partner with some community-based organizations that serve deaf new Americans. And important to know about the barriers the deaf community faces. Okay, New York City. So the Office for New Americans, one of our free services Kelly shared about is that we have a network of immigration attorneys, and it is free, as are all ONA services. So that can be a resource, and recommend calling our hotline, which we can put in the chat. That's that number 1-800-566 7636. But I would say that there is a lot of need for immigration legal support at the moment. So a lot of lawyers, there can be waiting lists. People can be at capacity, but it's still important to be connected for that support when they can access that. And I also would share, if you're connecting with attorneys outside of our network, the recommendation to connect with attorneys that are free or low cost and trusted to assist to see, if someone has a case, and then also support to navigate accessibility through naturalization or immigration processes, making sure if someone's a deaf new American, that they have access to sign language interpretation for effective communication. And I'm sure, as you're aware, that deaf new American communities, that there's not always interpreters available for sign languages from different countries. I would also put in a plug for the New York State Office for the Deaf, Deafblind, and Hard of Hearing to flag issues and needs to that office as well.
Great. And we have about 10 minutes for more questions if people have them. Okay, Vernon put in the chat here, and I think I know the answer to this. Can the Office of New Americans, ONA, help an illegal immigrant in New Jersey? My guess, because the Office of New Americans is a New York State agency, the answer to that is no. However, you may know of resources that you could point to in New Jersey.
Thank you. To my knowledge, yeah, go ahead.
Am I correct on that?
Yes. So I would also share, I'm having a hard time accessing the chat to attendees, but we also have an email that you could share about this case, for our awareness. It's New Americans at DOS for Department of State.ny.gov. And there's also, to my knowledge, there's an office for New Americans in New Jersey as well. So they may also be able to assist.
Okay.
Yes, there is an office for New Americans in New Jersey. I'm going to copy. By the way, can you all see what I'm copying in the chat?
The way the chat is set up, and we do this as an accessibility accommodation, is all the chats go to hosts and panelists. However, I'll have the chat file, and I'll put a little resource guide together
Great.
with the materials. And also, this is the first time we're doing this. Our now former director of advocacy, Alex, helps me a lot with some of the technical stuff with the chat and everything, to make it a little bit more accessible for me. And well, he's now one of New York State's latest employees, so we're just working through this together here, and so hopefully next month things will be a little bit smoother. Looks like we got a question from Mandy. How long can work authorizations last for? Mandy is asking, and I think there's a second part to the question that my screen reader is not reading to me right now.
Great. I think Lourdes, you could take that.
Sure. So it will depend on the immigration status. For instance, for temporary protected status, that is contingent on what Department of Homeland Security, like how long they extend that benefit for certain countries. And sometimes the benefit expires and they don't renew it. So that's one example. Employment authorization documents, they have an expiration date. So it's going to vary depending on the immigration status, but it can be renewed, and that's something also to keep in mind in general, right? The expiration date doesn't mean that the person needs to leave the country, or it can be renewed.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, I just see Kelly's hand is up.
Yes, I just wanted to add to the discussion. I'm first of all, thank you so much for listening today and for learning about the different ways that ONA assists new Americans throughout the state. But I also wanted to remind you, as you're asking these questions, you're welcome to visit our website. At the New Americans website, you can find all sorts of information, including Know Your Rights and other things that are happening right now. But I also wanted to remind everyone we have a network of providers in all the communities throughout the state in the different regions. So as you're looking, as you have questions that may require legal assistance or questions about services in your particular regions, if you contact the ONA hotline, we'll be able to connect you. Or if you email us, we'll be able to connect you throughout the different regions in New York State. I just wanted to add that because I know presentations are great, but we pack with so much information. I myself sometimes question, like, wait, what did I hear? So use the ONA website as a resource for yourself as well. Thank you.
Kelly, thank you so much. And Mandy, the wonderful Mandy from Taconic Resources for Independence. Thank you for putting the second part of the question in the box so I can actually read it out. Super appreciate you making this a tad more accessible for me. Part two of Mandy's question was, um, can people be eligible for SSDI? Yeah, can people be eligible for SSDI if Medicare and Social Security taxes are being taken out of their uh, paychecks? I think I may have missed a couple of words in there. So either one of you from ONA, if you're able to pop open the Q&A box there. But I think I got the general gist of it.
Thank you for sharing that. That one I cannot speak to, unfortunately, but can see if we can bring that back.
Oh, if they have not completed their citizenship paperwork, that's a key. There we go. Yeah, if they had not completed their citizenship paperwork, there, Cynthia, was the part I missed.
No worries. That one, so for this training, we just have the information on the SSI. Unfortunately, we don't have the answer to that question for SSDI.
Okay, where, because it's a very good question because Medicare, because SSDI, Social Security Disability Insurance, if you don't know what the acronym is, that's tied to Medicare. For those who don't know, I wonder where we could get an answer for that. Mandy, you've stumped the experts, but we'll figure it out. We have about 3 minutes left if anyone has any additional questions. Anecdotally, since the administration change, what are the three of you noticing as it relates to the treatment of new Americans with disabilities and how that's changed? if
Um,
at all?
so just quickly on the SSDI, just for my own looking, I would refer to the Social Security Administration if they have information on that. But then also, uh, perhaps a law firm might have further information on that. But to your question, Blaze, Kelly, I'm wondering if you would like to speak to that.
I wanted to say with all the fast and rapid changes that are happening, we do have a team here of attorneys who is on top of things and who keep us abreast of the changes. But as of right now, I don't know of any specific changes that have taken place. I have not seen anything directly affecting folks yet due to these changes.
Okay.
Doesn't mean they're not happening. I'm just saying that at least some of the meetings we've gone to, I belong to a task force here in Western New York for individuals with disabilities, and we will be meeting this coming week. I can always report back and follow up on that question, but as of right now, I am not aware of any changes.
Okay. Lourdes, any final thoughts before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I guess generally speaking, what we've heard is just more fear in the New American communities requesting services. Yeah, there's like before there were already all these barriers, language barriers, immigration status barriers. But now I feel like the fear is what a lot of service providers are noticing, that people are afraid to request services.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's a very disturbing ripple effect that's happening everywhere, and collective, we can defend against um, the harms that are being done to all of our communities. Um, so that's the hope, is that we can all collectively work together to defend against the many injustices that both of our communities are facing. And with that, I want to thank Cynthia Stewart, Kelly Hernandez, and Lourdes Aguas for taking the time from the Office of New Americans to do this fantastic presentation. It's always a pleasure working with you, and thanks to our intern Rachel, as well as our interpreters and captioner, for making our webinar fully accessible, and of course, to you for attending or listening to this recording, if that's you're catching it. Um, November's webinar will be with the New York State Talking Book and Braille Library, not just for people who are blind, but people with other print disabilities as well. And I'll have more info on that. The survey and other materials will be coming to you either later today or first thing tomorrow. So with that, thank you all very much, and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you to the interpreters. And thanks to everyone who joined. And thank you, Blaze and Rachel.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.